Well, hello, everyone. Merry Christmas to everyone who celebrates that sort of thing. I hope you're all having a wonderful and fabulous Christmas Eve so far. I've been fighting with people in the grocery store. I ordered our, okay, Victor and I suck at cooking. We do. I actually can make a really good meal if I try to. I just am not inclined. So I ordered our food from Whole Foods. Little did I know that Whole Foods had instituted a mask mandate again. I was so mad. Anyway, we're not going to talk about that. That's what I've been doing today. I've also made a very special trip to the specialty beer store, the craft beer store, if you will. And so we've got some good ones to drink today. But guys, welcome to Happy Hour, Christmas edition, where we, on a weekly basis, gather together to watch a woke training or a presentation of some sort about critical race theory or white supremacy or any other crazy leftist progressive nonsense that actually does happen in the real world. We watch things that are presented at colleges. We watch things that are presented in organizations. We watch things people put on the internet, not thinking that people who don't agree with them will actually watch it. And the reason we do this is because we want to make sure that we understand specifically what is going on. When you just watch the news or you just get the headlines, all you get are the most inflammatory things that are said. But the reality is when you watch these trainings from start to finish, you start to learn after a while that what is not showing up in the headlines is actually more nefarious. So we watch it from start to finish. We let them say what they want to say. They have every opportunity to convince us to agree with them. Usually they don't. Usually we sit here and we mock it and we drink and we make fun of it. Now today, because we are on the eve of the birth of the Christian Lord and Savior, we have a very special happy hour training. A very special one. This one comes to us from Villanova University, Roman Catholic University. Just keep that in mind. I believe they're a Roman Catholic university. Villanova University. Is your God a white racist? Reflecting on the theological nature of white supremacy. I can't think of a better way to celebrate the birth of the Lord than with a presentation about if God is a white supremacist. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. You're all welcome. Now, we've got some orders of business to take care of before we jump into the training today. The first thing I want to say is this. I just want to make a general statement. You guys humor me for a second. People are still logging on. I want to make a general statement. I am over the drama and the bullshit and the nonsense of 2021. That is what 2021 was for me. Drama and bullshit and nonsense as I was trying to do work. So I have made an early New Year's resolution. Moving forward, if you want to bring drama or nonsense or personal bullshit into my space, I am no longer going to suffer it. Not 1 second longer. The only reason that I want to be in this space is to train and support warriors who are going to fight back. That is the only interest I have. And it's the thing I'm good at. I view my role in this whole little game as providing a role model for other people about what it looks like to be a badass, to not take shit from anyone, to be able to stand up for what you believe in, and to survive anything they throw at you. Because if you all see me do it, that means that you can do it too. I am not interested in petty bickering. I am not interested in Twitter nonsense and bullshit. I am only interested in training and supporting warriors. And if you're going to go out there and fight and push back against this woke agenda in your community, in your real life, then you will have my support. I will have your back. I will do whatever I can do to help you. But if you are going to come into this space and disrupt the community that I'm trying to build, disrupt my audience, disrupt in the comments, try to get people in a bad mood or turn people against each other, you are not effing welcome. If you are going to distract people with bullshit and nonsense that does not equate to fighting back in the real world, then you are not welcome. It's stupid. It's ridiculous. We have actual problems on our hands to fight, people. We have actual problems. Your feelings are no longer my concern. Your feelings about my tone are no longer my fucking concern. If you want to show up and fight back, I will use that tone to support you in any way I can. But if you're just going to be disruptive and cry off in a corner and work through your feelings in front of everyone else, this is not the place for you. I'm sorry. I've had it. I've reached my breaking point. That's all I really have to say. If you would like to get on board and do what we're here to do, then you can stay. If you would like to engage in nonsense and reeing, then you can leave. It is really that simple. I would rather have a small army of committed warriors every single day than a large army of whiners and complainers and people who are going to focus on the wrong effing things. That is what I have to say. Now let's get started with the fun stuff. Of course, we are going to be watching our presentation today. Let's take a glimpse at, hang on, where is the screen? Let's look at the description. Many Christians believe that God is particularly interested in freedom for the oppressed. But 40 years ago, theologian William R. Jones, in his legendary work, Is God a White Racist?, demanded the Christian communities reckon with what seemed to be a discrepancy between God's role as liberator and the lived realities of Black people in America. This session will explore how white supremacy has been woven into Christianity. We will think together about how to rescue God from the clutches of heterosexism, patriarchy, ableism, and racism, and reimagine faith as true freedom for all people. And this is on Villanova University's official YouTube channel. No big deal. No big deal at all. Now, we do play Unwoke Bingo during happy hour. So if you would like to play Unwoke Bingo, maybe today's a good day for it. We were so close to a blackout bingo last week. There is a link in the description below on whatever platform you're watching on right now, whether that be YouTube or Rockfin or Odyssey or even Facebook. Go ahead and grab your Unwoke Bingo card. It will generate you a completely original bingo card based on the list of words that I have inputted into it. And we're going for lines. Sorry, guys. We're going for lines for the first bingo, or we're going for corners. If you get a line or you get a corner, you shout out bingo in the chat. We will all celebrate and commend you. You won't win anything but bragging rights and the praise of people who are here playing right along with you. Once we get our first bingo, then we're going for blackout bingo. We have yet to get a blackout bingo. I have full faith that it will happen one day. We play bingo to keep us alert, to make sure we're paying attention, make sure we're following along. During the presentation, I do take liberties sometimes. If something happens that I like, you may get a free bingo square. So please make sure you're paying attention. Dragon Water says, may your beer be delicious. Yes, we're going to get to the beer in a second because I went to the specialty beer store today. Now, the other thing I want to mention before we get started is this might be the last happy hour of 2021 that is on my main YouTube channel. I am not 100% positive I'm going to be doing happy hour next week. The reason I'm not 100% positive is I'm going to brunch with Joshua. And I don't know if I'm going to be back in time. If I do happy hour, maybe just like a smidge later than usual. It's also like New Year's Eve. So Victor and I actually have a New Year's Eve party to go to. So we may do happy hour next week. We may not. We may do it on a day that's like not Friday. So this could actually be the last happy hour of the year or ever on my main channel. And the reason that is if you are watching on my main YouTube channel right now, Carlin Burisenko, I'm going to be moving happy hour exclusively to my second YouTube channel, Actively Unwoke, in the new year. I'm also broadcasting on Actively Unwoke right now because I knew I was going to be moving it there eventually, and it was just easier to just put it in both places, to be honest. But starting in 2022, I will no longer be doing happy hour on my main YouTube channel. So If you want to subscribe to my second channel, it's in the description below. It's just youtube.com/activelyunwoke, and that is going to be the home of Happy Hour in the new year. If you enjoy it, I want to make sure everyone is subscribed so that you can keep on enjoying it. And of course, the last thing is that if you enjoy the work I do, I try to post content about news, politics, culture, all sorts of random goodies almost every single day of the week, except on Saturdays because I take Saturdays off. If you enjoy the work I do, the very best thing you can do to help support me is to become a member in my Locals community. Locals is at kb.locals.com, or is it bing? And actually, let me put up my ticker just to have, another option. If you're going to be joining us for Happy Hour today, why not spend a little time, get signed up for Locals, and it's free to join on just kb.locals.com if you just want to see what's going on in the community, see if it's the place for you. But if you want to support my work, I promise I'm not going to I don't have COVID. Rumors of my infection of COVID are greatly exaggerated. If you want to support the work I'm doing, please make sure you become a member. You can do that at $5 a month. You can give more if you want to, but you don't have to by any stretch. You can do that at $50 a year, which gives you 2 months for free. You can make a one-time gift. But the support I receive in Locals is absolutely critical to keeping me independent. It really is. My Locals members make it possible for me to do what I'm doing. We do multiple Zoom calls a week with my Locals members. I have 2 community Zoom calls every single week that anyone can log on and talk about whatever you want to talk about, receive any type of support you want, get to talk to other people in the community. It is a sane bastion of just awesomeness. A diverse group of individuals. We do not always agree, but we do always come out as friends at the end of the day, always supporting each other, no bickering or fighting or any of those things. It is the very best place on the internet. So make sure you check out my Locals if you haven't already. Okay, now, because this is Happy Hour, I need to get a beer. I have a wide selection today because I just got back from the beer store. So let me show you guys what I have. So the first one I have is Southern Tier Frosted Sugar Cookie. Now, this is an Imperial Ale, so it is going to be a big beer. Let me see. I can't find the... oh, there it is. 8.6%. Now, the problem with Southern Tier sweet beers is that sometimes when they're sweet, they're like really sweet. So I've never had the sugar cookie beer from Southern Tier. I do enjoy a lot of their beers, but we're going to see. Dragon Water says, true that, Locals rocks. Thank you, Dragon Water, for the support. Let's see some other beers I have. You guys can help me choose. Look at this one. This is called Eyes Up Here. And this is a sour ale with dragon fruit puree, blueberry puree, pineapple puree, and vanilla. That sounds delightful, but check this one out. Check this one out. Look at that can. How sexy is that? Sometimes I buy beer just based on how much I like the can alone. This is a sour ale with blueberry and lemon. That is one of my favorite combinations ever. And I just think that can is just like unbelievably sexy. It's so hot. Okay. Next up, we have Mexican Chocolate Style Stout, which is going to be, I'm suspecting, a little bit spicier than normal for like normal chocolate. Sin says she likes blueberry. I do too. I'm not going to drink all these, guys. I'm just showing you the selection because I like talking about beer. Next up, we have Barista, which is a double coffee porter. It is a next to impossible task to find beer at the craft beer store that's like not an IPA. I don't like IPAs. And then last up, we have Wholesome Whistle Scream. This is like an eclectic like movie style can. Chocolate vanilla coffee porter aged in a bourbon barrel. So I think if you guys have an opinion about what beer I should start with, go ahead, type it into the chat. You can also let me know what you're drinking today. It's Christmas Eve, guys. Break out that eggnog. Spike it a little bit. It's going to help us get through this presentation. But I think I want to go with probably a lighter beer to start. And I'm thinking it has to be this one. I'm thinking it has to be this one. I know, Justin, I want to do the frosted sugar cookie too, but the problem with the frosted sugar cookie beer is it's 8.6%. So that means I'm going to get silly. I'm going to get silly fast. This beer is, hang on. This beer is only 6%. Yeah, we're going to go with this one first. But I am actually really excited to try the sugar cookie. So maybe we'll do the sugar cookie a little bit later. Okay, let's see. I wish I could do a beer tasting with all of you. For those who think that like beer is just not your drink, it's just because you haven't found the right beer yet. Beer's so good. There's so many good styles of beer. That looks I'm not feeling that color, if I'm honest. Ooh, it got kind of blue though, didn't it? I don't know if I'm feeling this color. Let me smell. Definitely smells like a sour. That's actually delightful. It is. It's really good. It's definitely a lemony blueberry goodness. Yeah, that's good. Sexy can, good beer. All right, guys, who is ready to start the presentation today? You guys ready to learn if Jesus was a white supremacist? I know you are. Go ahead and let me know in the chat if you're ready to go. Share screen, Chrome tab. Bing. I love that they called it Freedom School Session. All right, let me just check in on Odyssey. Let me check in on Rockfin. Okay, nothing's really going on in there. Guys, please make sure you're subscribed on Odyssey and Rockfin if you're using alt tech, which we all should be doing. All right, guys, let's get this party started. Let's find out, was God a white supremacist? Let me know, as always, if the sound is not working.
I am delighted to be with you today. My name is Reverend Naomi. You call me Reverend Naomi.
Reverend Naomi.
And I want to explore the theological nature of white supremacy for the next few minutes. I want to start by saying I became interested in this once I moved away from my hometown, my home church, my home social network, and experienced Christianity as other people were doing it. People who didn't grow up where I grew up, people who weren't formed how I was formed spiritually, religiously. And so it got me wondering, what's peculiar about the way I was exposed to Christianity? And what are some of the vulnerabilities within Christian tradition that allow Christianity to be used as an instrument of systems of oppression? Right? How is Christianity as a religious system, as an ideology, vulnerable to that kind of exploitation? So I started to ask this question.
Why do the woke hate religion, do you think? Why do the woke hate religion? You know, I firmly, and I know there's a delay in the chat, so I'm going to talk a little bit while you guys are chatting in your answers. You know, you guys know I got canceled for that tweet recently. And one of the things that was so striking to me was the amount of like fervor. And I don't buy for one red second that it was about anti-Semitism, because I've been screaming about anti-Semitism for a good long time. No one said anything. You know what I think it was about? I think it was about they saw a belief system that they could not control. Yeah, so we got some ideas in the chat about why the woke hate religion so much. Alex says Christianity is largely about forgiveness and moving on from bad things happening to you. I can see why she hates it. Some Christians. It puts God before the state. Yup. It takes power away from them. Yup. Because it promotes power other than their ideology. Absolutely. religion is in competition with the woke religion. I think that that's really, really on the money, Sin. I do. Stephen, I think they hate all religion because the reason that they hate it is because who said it? Nadia said it. It promotes power other than their ideology. Or Twin Tail says it takes power away from them. So what people need to understand about the woke agenda, we talk about this all the time, it's not about race or any of these things. It is only about amassing as much power as you possibly can. And it is, James Lindsay calls critical race theory a belief system. The belief that racism is the fundamental organizing principle of society. They function very much as a religion, and racism is the god of this religion. It's what they worship. If racism didn't exist, they would have absolutely no reason to be doing what they're doing. It is their number one tool. It is their number one asset. The woke progressive left are a religion, and they worship at the altar of racism. And so, just like Christianity, when they went on their crusades, they cannot tolerate any sort of competing religion. I got canceled by conservative Christians, guys. I know people think that it started with the left. It did not. It started with conservative Christians because they did the same thing. They couldn't tolerate any belief system that was not theirs. Anything that what authoritarians hate more than anything else are people that they cannot control, people that they cannot keep under their thumb. So we're going to see, she's already it's like, imagine for a minute, calling yourself reverend and then doing a whole presentation about how much you dislike your belief system. What's her real religion? Is it Christianity or is it racism? Let's see.
Questions 20 years ago. Here I am, a professional Christian, a professional religious person, still exploring these same questions. And I think that today, here as we sit in January of 2020, this is a question that is top of mind as we negotiate our political climate, our social climate, and yes, our religious climate. Today, a day of significance even within the Catholic Church here in Philadelphia, right? You all know the buzz today about the appointment of a new archbishop for our area, right? So I think this is a really timely conversation 20 years after I first started, and believe you me, I'm not the only one or the first one to ask these questions, but 20 years after I started to explore it, here we sit, okay? So that gives you a frame of what we're going to talk about for the next chunk of time. I want you to react to this image. Can you see? I don't know if lights would be helpful. Oh, okay, that's pitch black. Okay. Okay, well, on or off. These are options. What comes to mind when you look at this picture?
What this picture is of, I think we can all see, is like the KKK and a sign that says Jesus saves. But what I would argue is the people in this picture are perverting Christianity just as much as the presenter is. The people in this picture probably thought they were on a mission from God as well. But they're perverting God's love in exactly the same way that the presenter is going to. This is why I have never appreciated religion. And listen, guys, I don't care what religion you practice, or if you don't practice at all, it doesn't make a lick of difference to me. But I just don't understand organized religion, because I do think that too many people ultimately pervert it and use it to try to control populations. And I think that, if you are a person of faith, you should be able to commune with God in your own way by looking inside yourself, because we are all a product of God. And this is why I've always had an issue with organized religion. I just think it's about power, and I think it's about control just as much as I think the woke left is about power and control. And so it's kind of interesting to see like these two worlds colliding with each other.
Yeah.
Turning over and
Okay, so Jesus, are you suggesting, would be displeased with this picture? Okay. Other thoughts that come to mind?
I mean, I think that Jesus would be displeased. I think that Jesus would look upon both this picture and this presentation and say, well, I mean, like I'd actually be interested to know what the Christians think about this. So in my belief system, Jesus is actually a thing. He's an ascended master. He's not like the son of God or anything, because we're all the son of God. But what I think that Jesus would say both to this picture and to this presentation is, look how absolutely what is the word I'm looking for? Oh my gosh. Misguided. I think that Jesus would look at this situation with both that photo and with this presentation and say, look how misguided these human beings are, possibly with a little smile on his face, being like, they're on their journey. They're going to discover truth someday. Again, like the Jesus I know wouldn't be angry at this. The Jesus I know would be like, you're misguided. You're still evolving. And, don't commit acts of hate in my name, sort of thing.
Ever seen this picture before? Okay, so it's a new picture.
Hang on. Dragon Water has a super chat. I have heard it said religion is for those afraid of going to hell. Spirituality is for those who have been to hell and walked through it. That's really lovely, Dragon Water. Thank you for that.
What's going on in the picture? Let's speculate. Yes.
Yeah, he's not mad. He's just disappointed.
Oh. Okay, so we see some people we recognize by virtue of the fact that they have on what they have on. So these folks are dressed like Ku Klux Klan members. Okay, we see a banner that says Jesus saves. Where is this? Speculate.
South.
Okay, you think in the South? Okay. Why? Okay. So Klan activity may be prominent in the South, so we speculate that this was taken in the South. What else do we know about the location? Just speculation.
Hang on a second. This is a really interesting thought. Jesus would be killed by this morons. By, I think, maybe these morons. I absolutely agree with you. I think if we're talking, like, would the woke left tolerate a modern day Jesus? That's an interesting question to consider, isn't it? Wasn't it kind of the woke of his day? Now, I haven't read the Bible in a minute. I have read it. People don't think I have. I've actually read like many different versions of it, but not in a minute. Wasn't Jesus kind of killed by the woke of his day? How would the woke left handle someone like Jesus today? Isn't that an interesting thought experiment? Someone should write a movie about that. George Andre Veloso Nunez says Jesus himself talked about how Jewish religious leaders of the time were corrupting God's teachings to their advantage. Exactly. Alex says Jesus constantly says to forgive and move on and not be afraid. That's right.
Okay. What kind of building might this be? A church. How do we know? This thing looks like a pulpit. We see somebody standing behind it who is dressed boringly. So I'm going to say that's the preacher. We might be inclined to see banners that say Jesus saves in a place where folk believe Jesus saves. So maybe a church. Other things you notice, yes. Okay. So There's religious symbolism. There's also, this is some sort of stage, maybe. We got people seated. So maybe some sort of auditorium setting. Anything else? No, it's a lot of men. So it looks like there's not a lot of gender diversity here. Okay. Yeah. Looks like a flag. It is a flag. American flag in the corner here. There's another flag here. Not sure. Maybe state flag. I've been in some religious settings where there's a Christian flag. Okay. This was taken in Portland, Oregon. At a
That's
meeting
funny.
hosted by a church of the Ku Klux Klan and an auxiliary association, an auxiliary organization. Does knowing that context change your reaction? How does that land on you?
That's funny that it's in Portland. Dragonwater says the Christian right would murder Jesus today the same as the left would. You know, Dragonwater, that's an interesting thing to consider, isn't it? I mean, I've talked many times about how I believe there's woke on the right just as much as I believe there's woke on the left. I absolutely believe that there are some Christian groups on the right that have completely and totally perverted the teachings of Jesus to gain power in their communities and in their churches. Absolutely. Man, it would be, someone needs to make like a really well thought out movie about Jesus coming to earth today and like what that might be like, because there are just so many just interesting different scenarios in which Jesus, you know, runs into groups that are purporting to act in his name and to worship him as Lord and Savior and all this stuff, who probably would not necessarily be acting in the way that Jesus would like them to act, with the Christ love the Christ consciousness that he would like them to have.
Knowing a little bit more about the origins of the picture. It hurts. You want to say why?
I didn't know. Yeah, I didn't know it was in Oregon.
Mm-hmm. So geographically, that feels disorienting. Okay.
So widespread.
Okay. Anything else striking about this? Yeah. So.
Like in a public space with other people, like recognizing that they're there.
So this isn't a private secret meeting in somebody's living room. Yes.
I think it's surprising also that the church organized it.
Okay. There seems to be some relationship.
What year was it?
Groups.
What year was it? She's not saying that. What year was it?
And the institution of the Ku Klux Klan. Right? So the whole premise is that there is some sort of toxic, unhealthy, unrighteous relationship between an institution that we might call the poster institution for white supremacy and other kinds of social systems of oppression, and Christianity. Jesus saves who? Is a question that this image begs us to ask. What does that salvation consist of?
Why does she assume that Jesus only saves a certain group of people? I'm sorry, like, apparently we're just going to get theological in this discussion today. We haven't even gotten to the white supremacy bit of it yet, other than, you know, staring at an image of the Ku Klux Klan with a sign that says Jesus saves. And if that's really the best argument that she has, that the church is a white, that God is a white supremacist, I don't think that's a very powerful argument. But like, why is it that Christians always assume that Jesus is only going to save some people? Yet another problem I have with Christianity. I believe God loves us all unconditionally. Unconditionally, regardless of whether we fuck up in our human life or not. And there, of course, there are varying levels of F-ups in our human life, but it doesn't make any sense to me to, you know, say that, oh, only the group that acts the way that I say that they should act, they're the ones that are going to get saved. And then they'll always point to the Bible and say, oh, I'm just going by the Bible, when in fact, usually they're not going by the Bible. Thank you, Mandatory Carry, for the super chat. I appreciate it.
Can I be saved?
Yes.
As far as these folks are concerned.
Wait, hang on. What did she just say? Can I be saved? And so far as these folks are concerned, I'm sorry. The people in the robes are not Jesus. The people in the robes are human beings who are inherently flawed and leading ego-driven lives. They do not get to decide who is saved. And why is she giving them the power to decide who is saved? That makes absolutely no sense. Just because someone says they are acting in the name of God does not mean they are acting in the name of God. In fact, I would believe that they're never acting in the name of, they're acting in the name of themselves. So why are we, you know what this is? This is exactly like when the left says you're a racist for disagreeing with me or through committing any number of infractions, and the right just goes, oh no, or not even just the right, but like anyone who's not like part of the woke left go, oh no, don't call me a racist. And then they start using the woke left's definition of racism. This is exactly the same thing. You are giving the woke left exactly the same power that she's giving people in the KKK. People in the KKK don't get to decide who gets saved. That's ridiculous. If you believe in your own religion, that's a ridiculous notion.
What was that conversation like? Did the minister do the inviting? Did the minister simply respond to a proposal for a meeting? Do they always have their meetings here? These are all questions I have as a result of seeing this image. But what it does, at least in my view, is, again, prompt me to ask, what of this relationship? How did these two get together? And again, what is the vulnerability within this statement, Jesus saves, that prompts some folk to think this is cool, this is appropriate, this is godly? Yeah. The Ku Klux Klan is a Christian organization, right? The burning of...
Well, they declared themselves to be a Christian organization. I can declare myself to be like the Queen of Sheba, and that doesn't actually make me a queen, sadly. Sadly, it does not make me a queen today. Human F Being says, Jesus, for free, stood up for the poor, fed the hungry, and healed the sick. The right would call that socialism. I mean, I don't see where Jesus said that any of us were obligated to give of our resources to do all those things, to be really honest with you. I would also believe, like in my belief system, Jesus could do all those things because he believed he could do those things. He also believed that any single one of us could do everything that he could do. Now, this is the real mind fuck when you start getting into spirituality and you start looking at Jesus from that perspective, not the Christian perspective, which is a fundamentally different perspective, but from that perspective, Jesus believed that we could all do the things that Jesus could do if we believe that we could do those things. So from my perspective, Jesus was being a model to demonstrate that you can achieve anything and do anything and create anything that you believe that you can. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to be an example of doing that thing. I don't believe that Jesus was a socialist. I believe that Jesus was a model for personal empowerment.
Crosses is connected. Right? So again, how did these folk get into it with each other? Right? Okay. Any other comments on the picture before we move on? Yeah.
It's a little concerning too because I know we can't see the whole photo, but it looks like the whole crowd is full. Like there's not a single.
So this wasn't a sparsely attended meeting.
You can't tell that from the photo. You just made that up.
And
you can't tell that from the photo.
Yeah. Good point. So here's the claim I'm making. That white supremacy and its cousins had to first be imagined and justified and implemented theologically. in order to be sustained and effective politically,
Wow.
socially, economically, etc. That first it had to be sanctified. That first we had to make it part of God's design before it could be successful. For this long, and still this effective, my argument.
Hang on, I wanted to show you guys a comment in the chat. Jay now says, the people in the KKK believed a black person could be saved if they gave up their blackness. The progressive believes that whites can be saved if they give up their whiteness. Isn't it funny how they really do appear to be two sides of the same coin?
It had to first be theologically justified. What are your reactions to my making that claim? In order for it to work, it had to be put in God's hands literally. What do you think? Feel free to wrestle with me on it.
Why would God, if God creates everything, why would God create the source of all his power on earth, religion, as a way of keeping down or oppressing his children? Is she actually arguing that God, where we all come from, strategically said, I'm going to lift this population of my children up and keep these population of my children down? Is that the argument that's being made? Well, I mean, actually, now that I'm thinking out loud about it, you could kind of argue that he did that with angels, right? Like what do Christians say? I don't believe this, but like, what do Christians say? That like angels look onto humans and don't understand why humans are God's favorite creation? I mean, maybe. I don't think that. I think that, I believe in angels in a different way, but Christians seem to think that. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like not necessarily God himself was like took that as the people who interpreted his words and like misused them, and it's their actions that like caused oppression and like obviously disastrous like things, but I don't necessarily think it was like God himself wanted that to happen.
Here's one of these vulnerabilities I'm referring to. That take the Bible. The biblical witness is a witness. It is human beings trying to make sense of their own journeys. And in so doing, those human beings gave God a role, gave God a nature. So in some ways, we imagine God to be fill in the blank. And that imagination is bound by our own limitations, our own.
Well, your limitations are that you grew up in the United States. I have been in a church in Machu Picchu, Peru, that literally had a crucifix with a black Jesus. So if you're imagining God or Jesus to be white, that is a reflection of what you have been taught in where you grew up. Not everyone in the world sees Jesus or God as white. I mean, even if we're just being practical about it, like it's kind of obvious that Jesus was not white. I'm sorry. Given the area of the world that the historical Jesus was born in, the time he was born in, he weren't white, guys. He's not white. Anyone can look at a map and know like basic geography and figure that out. But like I said, like I've been in churches. Has anyone been in churches where you've seen crucifixes that are not pasty white Jesus? Because I have. It's not in the US, but I have.
own commitments, sometimes misguided commitments. So if I've got commitment to women should never become ministers, that's my commitment, then I am going to look for a witness. You know, I grew up in a church tradition.
Yeah, Jesus was a
where the
Jew. He
preacher
was an Arab
constantly
Jew.
asking, do I have a witness?
He wasn't white.
Meaning, do you know what I'm talking about? Have you seen it? Do I have a witness to this? Well, the biblical text and you and I, who come to the biblical text looking for spiritual formation, right, are trying to find a witness to our own experiences. You know, what does this got to do with me? And so it's very then easy to come to the biblical text with my own commitments and invite God to my own commitment. So if I'm committed to the project of white supremacy, I'm committed to the project of indigenous genocide, I'm committed to the project of patriarchy.
Did she just say that the church is committed to the project of indigenous genocide and patriarchy? Is that what she just said? That the church is committed to the project of white supremacy, indigenous genocide, and patriarchy? Hang on.
Own commitments and invite God to my own commitment. So if I'm committed to the project of white supremacy, I'm committed to the project of indigenous genocide, I'm committed to the project of patriarchy, I'm committed to the project of homophobia, transphobia, for whatever my reasons, I might come to a sacred text looking for a witness.
Oh, I understand what she's saying. What she's saying is that if you as a human being are committed to hating people who don't look like you, or no, I shouldn't even say hating because they don't actually believe they don't believe that that's true. If you are committed to oppressing people who are outside of the societal norms, then you are going. The argument that she's making is that you are going to use the Bible as a way to justify your actions. Well, guess what? Christians use the Bible to justify their actions literally all the time. Like, welcome to a day that ends in Y. George Andre Veloso Nunez says Brazilian Virgin Mary is of the color black. Yeah, that just makes sense. I mean, that's just like, so yes, I mean, I actually I find myself in agreement with her that on some level, if you are looking to a religious text to justify you doing bad things, you will absolutely be able to find justification within a religious text for you to be able to do that. That's how they're written. They're written in allegory. But that doesn't mean that God is a white supremacist. It means that man, who is flawed, is utilizing a religious text that was also P.S. written by man who is flawed in order to justify bad behavior and feel better about it. That does not mean that God is a white supremacist. That's stupid. George says, I can't believe it. I had to add of the color in my last message for YouTube to allow me to send it. Wow. Our YouTube overlords strike again.
I teach Theology 1000, which probably all of you have been tried by that fire, right? Okay. And we talk about biblical interpretation and the joys and challenges therein, right? So, theologically justifying a political system, an economic system, a social system that I'm already committed to. Okay, so more questions. I just have all the questions. I don't have many answers. Yes?
Can I just ask one question? At which point do you ask chicken and egg? Because when you first started, I kind of heard you saying that there's something about Christianity that makes it vulnerable to this. So did people look at scripture out of their own human fallibility to see a particular racial hierarchy reflected in the color language
Mhm.
I'm just wondering which
Yeah.
one first. Though.
Yeah, so I think it's really messy. I think chickens and eggs in some way.
That's your answer?
If we look back at Christian history,
you are teaching a college class. And your answer to the perfectly legitimate question of is this a chicken and an egg thing is like, I think that chickens and eggs are really messy. You are teaching a college level class. That was actually a really intelligent question on behalf of the student. That was an extremely intelligent question on behalf of the student who apparently like he was actually trying to engage in this. And it was just like, oh, well, they're just all messy. Okay.
right? We know that at some point there was a deliberate fusion of church and state. That at some point, the person in charge of the state, hello, Constantine, decided this will be the religion of the state.
Well, wouldn't it be better than if we kept religion out of the
so I'm not gonna
state
get into why
or separate from
he
the
had his
state?
reason.
Wouldn't that be convenient?
But at some point, he did the fusing. So chicken, I guess that would be. And yet the biblical text itself gives witness to the messiness between the Jesus movement, the folk who were trying to follow as best they could Jesus, and the other folk who saw this as an opportunity, the hope as an opportunity to exploit and to control. Right? So that's the non-answer to your question. I think that we got chickens and eggs at one time happening. And so vigilance, I think, is key. We'll come there in a second. Okay, here are more questions. What does racial identity have to do with theology? In other words, how does my racial identity,
that is a great question,
racialization,
that is a great question,
impact how I do theology, what I say and think about God? How has God been used as a tool of white supremacy?
Is she actually going to answer these questions or is she just asking them? Because I would actually really like an answer to the question of what does racial identity have to do with theology? Hopefully she actually answers these at some point. Dragonwater said she projecting. They all project. They all project all the time.
So again, if you can put it in God, put those words in God's mouth, you know, those words become sanctified. We might not question them. How is white supremacy designed by a theology? I'm calling this a theology of whiteness.
A theology of whiteness.
So when you put whiteness, which I'll define in a second,
please do
theology, you get potentially the project of white supremacy. How have the ideals of white supremacy been woven into religious systems, symbols, ideas, and practices? So what we think is purely religious might also be connected to this ideological system over here. This is the hopeful question, the ambitious question. How can God be rescued from the clutches of white supremacy and its cousins? Right? Yeah.
You mean God and Christianity? Or just...
Well, my 2 cents.
Mm-hmm. You're saying another system.
The institution has been taken in some ways. And so let's first think about how do we restore a connection to and a commitment in the divine?
She just basically said she's not a Christian. Why is she saying, is she saying she's not a Christian? She wouldn't answer that question. She's trying to deflect. What is her religion then? What is she a reverend of? If she's saying that Christianity as an institution has been kept, hang on, let's just watch that again. That was weird.
The system.
The institution has been taken.
The institution
some
has been
ways.
taken.
And so let's first think about how do we restore a connection to and a commitment in the divine.
Then what is she a reverend of? Like, I obviously am not a Christian in any way. I'm a deeply spiritual person. I am not a Christian in any way. But I don't get up and call myself reverend either and talk about the church. What is she a reverend of if she believes that the institution of Christianity has been taken? Is she a reverend of woke? I'm being serious. Like, is she a reverend in a Christian church, or is she a reverend of woke? Because you have to choose one. You can't choose both. You can't practice two different religions at the same time, especially when those two different religions are fundamentally contradictory. Dragonwater says, to restore a connection to the divine, empower the people to find the divine for themselves, not create institutions. I absolutely agree with you, Dragonwater. I think everyone that finds God needs to find God in their own way. Or not at all, and that's fine too, because that might be your journey. But yeah, what is she a reverend of?
And then we figure out how we're going to be in relationships with these institutions. So these are some questions that I think are worth considering. Defining some terms. This might be too small to read. I'm sorry about that. So whiteness. This I'm drawing from kind of contemporary wisdom around these concepts. The white race was invented. We can pinpoint the moment at which
the white race was invented in 1619 when the first slave was brought to the Americas, because prior to the first slave being brought to the Americas, we didn't refer to people as white. We referred to them as Irish or English or German. White as a race was only invented in America, therefore whiteness was only invented in America as a way to separate white from non-white and to oppress all non-white people.
Which the white race came into being. It was invented as a ruling class that was formed to ensure social control.
Ding, ding, ding.
This process conferred certain privileges on European working people.
On European working people? On European working people, no. The most privileged of society when these people believe whiteness was invented were the gentry. You think that working people in like America in revolutionary times were privileged? Every single person, well, not every single, almost every single person that lives in America today has more privilege than working people in America did in the 1600s. How much more privilege do every single one of us, including her, have today than Americans of the working class in the 16 and 1700s? Please.
It's important to note that these privileges were not only against the interests of non-white people, but they were detrimental to the class interests of working people. So this sinister way in which there was a conferral of privilege while at the same time a pulling out of the economic rug, right? So white supremacy is the ideology that centers around the belief that white people are superior in certain characteristics, traits, attributes, as compared to people of other racial backgrounds.
That's actually not the correct definition, but let's go with that for now.
It's also a political ideology that maintains the political domination of white people.
Aha, there it is.
And it's a system of structural racism that privileges.
Hang on. Let's pause on that. Let's pause on that. Let's I want to hear that again. Let's pause on that.
Traits, attributes, as compared to people of other racial backgrounds. It's also a political ideology that maintains the political domination of white people.
She's saying that white supremacy is a political ideology that maintains the political domination of white people. Okay. Based on that definition of white supremacy, do you need to be white in order to be a white supremacist? if we agree with her definition, and we do not, but if we agree with her definition that white supremacy is a political ideology that is designed to ensure the political domination of white people, then do you have to be white in order to be a white supremacist? And like, what is the opposite of it? If based on her definition, if we ever cure white supremacy or fix white supremacy or eliminate white supremacy, then what does that equate to? Does it equate to another, oh god, my dogs are crazy about something. Does it equate to another race dominating? Is that what we're going for? What is the most likely outcome of that?
And it's a system of structural racism that privileges white people over others, regardless of the presence or absence of hatred, right? Usually
a system that privileges white people over others, regardless of if there's hatred. So she started out with hatred, and now she's like, you know what? There doesn't even need to be hatred. Don't worry about it. Yeah, graphically, Alex says it's like she's trying to make whiteness a religion as well. That is exactly correct.
we think about the Klan, folk just have animus toward all these people, right? Yeah, that, and there need not be hatred.
That beer's going quick.
There need not be people. Right. There's a book called Racism Without Racists.
Right. Racism Without Racists.
If you're interested in, you should pick up. Scholar says we don't need racists to maintain a system that confers privileges and maintains a system of domination. Racism.
So if white supremacy is just about maintaining a system of domination, then how do you measure white supremacy? You measure it through racial disparities. So if there are any racial disparities that exist in terms of outcomes, they will always assume it is because of white supremacy, because of the system of domination held out down anyone that wasn't white. That's Ibram X. Kendi. She's backing out of Ibram X. Kendi. Because Kendi's entire argument is that anytime there are racial disparities in outcomes, that is an indication that racism has occurred. There can't be any other explanation for it other than racism. She's backing out of Kendi.
Many folk define as both racial prejudice and abuse or misuse of power. Right? That prejudice isn't enough. You also got to have the corresponding power. These are just so we know we're not just throwing around terms, we kind of define them. Mentor, Professor, Reverend Dr. James Cone. I hope he's resting well. He wrote this. One must suppose that in order to feel comfortable in the Christian faith, whites needed theologians to interpret the gospel in a way that would not require them to acknowledge white supremacy as America's greatest sin. Right? So again, this brings back into the picture this question of what agency do I have to interpret the text, bless you, in a way that furthers my own commitments or helps me dodge the things I'm afraid to name. James Cone is often called...
Did she just say that she's interpreting the Bible in a way that suits her? I'm pretty sure that's basically what she just said. Do I have the freedom, the agency to interpret the text in a way that allows me to avoid certain things? That's what she just said. This is one of the problems I have with Christianity. Side note, this is one of the problems I have with Christianity is like people like call my belief system an a la carte belief system. In my belief system, I have to take responsibility for everything that happens to me, the good and the bad. I don't have to, but I should if I actually believe in my belief system. And then I see like people purporting to be reverends talking about how they can interpret their religious text in a way that best suits them to avoid the parts they don't like. That's a la carte Christianity right there. Jaya, I hope you feel better. I'm sorry to hear that you're sick.
Father of Black theology. He just died a couple years ago. Now, this guy is Reverend Dr. William Jones. He was Cone's contemporary. They were writing and thinking at the same time. But Jones has some bones to pick with Cone. Cone was saying, I know that God is on the side of the oppressed. God wants to restore dignity to those who've been dispossessed, dismissed, discarded. Jones was like, what reality are you looking at? Because it doesn't seem to me that the dispossessed and the discarded and the dismissed are winning.
Well, how are we defining winning?
That God is on their side. If God is just and benevolent, meaning God is interested in justice for all people, and God is good, and on the side of the oppressed, then what accounts for the persistence of Black people's pain and suffering and death? So William Jones was like, your God must be a white racist. He wrote a book called Is God a White Racist?
Wait, so the argument that God is a racist is that there are racial disparities? So in my belief system, we believe essentially that you're responsible for what you have in your life. We believe like God exists. God's, we are all little pieces of God that have come down to have a human experience, but you ultimately are responsible for what you do with that human experience. God isn't going to come and save you. You have to save yourself. You are the God of your own experience. Is she arguing that God is a racist because Black people suffer in the world? Guess what? People of all skin colors suffer in the world. Sometimes it's the suffering that pushes us to be the people that we need to be. If you have a specific role to fulfill in the world, you might have to go through suffering in order to push you to learn the lessons you need to learn to fulfill that role in the world. NBTTL1 says, maybe I've missed it. Cooking and wrapping gifts. Has she referenced biblical scripture yet? No. No, she has not. You didn't miss anything. I still have to wrap my gift for Victor. Shit. I got some badass Let's Go Brandon wrapping paper from bringammo.com though. Guys, anytime you want a 10% discount on everything on bringammo.com, just use my first name as the discount code, KARLYN. You'll get 10% off your whole order. But no, she has not quoted scripture yet. But like, I've never understood this argument. Like, okay, so did anyone, oh God, what is the name of that series? Lee Strobel? What is the name of his series of books? Like, hang on, I'm going to Google this real quick. This is important. It's not really that important. Strobel books. A case for Christ. The Case for Christ books. That's what they are. Okay, so this guy, and I actually like the Case for Christ books. If you guys have never read them, I definitely recommend giving them a read. They're really interesting. Case for Christ, you guys knew. Not Left Behind. We're not talking about Left Behind. Left Behind is a different thing. But one of the books he wrote, I think it was the fourth one. It was like, no, maybe it wasn't. In one of his books, he addressed like, why does God allow people to suffer? Right? This whole idea that life should be without suffering is ridiculous. If life was without any suffering, that would be heaven, or what Christians conceptualize as heaven. We are human beings having a spirit, like we are spiritual beings having a human experience. There's going to be suffering in this lifetime because we're not living in the spirit realm, man. And sometimes you need the suffering in order to push you to be the thing you want to be. I was talking about this with my locals yesterday on our local Zoom call. It's like, okay, so in the book that I have that's coming out next year, it's called Actively Unwoke. You can pre-order it in the description or whatever. But I actually have a whole chapter about, like, what do you do if you're canceled? Right? Because the whole premise of the book is like fighting back against the woke nonsense in your life. And so I wrote a whole chapter about what do you do if you're canceled? Like, what do you need to know about being canceled? Now, could I have ever written that chapter or, frankly, put myself in a position of helping people who are canceled if I had not been canceled myself? I've been canceled like a dozen times. Some of them really sucked. Some of them sucked bad. The recent one kind of sucked. It was like a moderate level of suck. It wasn't the worst I've experienced. But, like, could I ever help people to get through being canceled themselves if I had not myself been canceled? We suffer because we need to learn lessons in life. Those of us who learn our lessons will be able to utilize that suffering for the greater good. Those of us who do not learn our lessons will not be able to utilize it for the greater good. I know I'm not talking about Christianity right now. I'm talking about my beliefs, but like this very notion that we should be able to go through life without any suffering if God isn't a white supremacist. Like, that's ridiculous. I'm sorry. Suffering is part of life. Suffering is what makes us who we are. Suffering is what builds resiliency. Suffering is what teaches us what we're made of. Suffering is what gives us power. There are any number of reasons why at some point we should be grateful for the challenges that we've experienced in life because they allow us to be who we are. Moving on.
To provoke the conversation. He ultimately came down on, God is not a white racist. But he asked the question because he said, this doesn't add up to me. The experience of Black folk in particular seems to suggest that God is actually interested in furthering the project of white supremacy and not in restoring dignity and health and well-being to those who are most vulnerable. So he was pushing Cone. What do you think of this conversation? So Cone, God is on the side of the oppressed. White theologians, y'all need to get it together. How can you be ignoring what's actually happening around you? How can you ignore the fact that many white folks went to church Sunday morning and didn't even go home to change after church closed? Went to the park and passed hot dogs and witnessed and celebrated a lynching. How?
Well, again, what you're asking is like, why do people who call themselves Christians do bad things? I'm sorry, a lot of people who call themselves Christians do not know and do not have any resemblance to Christ's love. I'm sorry, we see this everywhere. Just because someone calls himself a Christian doesn't mean they act like a Christian. Just because someone, like, I mean, Jews, you have to be born into that, mostly. They make it very hard to convert. But this whole idea that just because someone calls themselves a Christian and then they do bad things, that's an indicator that God is a white supremacist. No, that's an indicator of the failing of the church. Which on that point, we can absolutely effing agree. If this is what the church is teaching people, then agreed. They are failing at their jobs. All right, I'm about to finish this beer, so we're going to get another one. Listen, man. Not all Christians should have to be labeled because some Christians do bad things. Because at the end of the day, they're human beings and they are flawed and they are going to make mistakes. I wish that more people in the world could accept the fact that we are all human beings, we are all flawed, we will all make mistakes. And if I make a mistake or you make a mistake, that is not an indicative descriptor of any group that I happen to be associated with. Sorry. All right, guys, we're going to do a vote in the chat. I have 2 beers I could continue with next, and I want you guys to tell me which one I should drink. Okay? Here are the 2 that I'm open to, and I've kind of been thinking about this sugar cookie beer. This is a frosted sugar cookie beer from Southern Tier. I've never had this. I've never had either of these before, so I don't know if they're any good. But that's an option. Or we could do Mexican style chocolate stout. It's got a good can. Let's not overlook that. The can is important, okay? Southern Tier frosted sugar cookie or Mexican style chocolate stout. Which one should I drink next? You get to vote in the chat. Well, people are voting. We have been at this for an hour and 15 minutes now. If you're enjoying what you're watching, please mount that like button on whatever platform you're watching on, whether that be YouTube or Rockfin or Odyssey or even Facebook. Please make sure you subscribe or like or whatever the channel is that on what you're watching. If you're watching on my first channel, my second channel, what have you, please make sure you're subscribed. We do this every Friday. Okay, let's see. Let's see. Mexican chocolate, sugar cookie. Oh, looks like the chocolate stout's winning. Chocolate stout, I guess. Jenny's getting icky with it. Says, it seems to me she's attributing the sins of man to God. Yeah, Jenny, I completely agree. She's attributing the sins of man to God. It's like, you know, like being in God, like it can't be easy to be God, right? God's like, man, I get blamed for shit all the time. That is not my fault. But God is also God, and so I'm sure God has a different perspective. All right, I guess we're going with Mexican style chocolate stout then. Let's see. This is... Who doesn't love a delicious mug of hot chocolate on a cold night? This full-bodied Mexican chocolate stout is sure to add a little kick to your beer drinking experience. The combination of lactose and various dark malts provide rich and roasted chocolate flavors that are balanced with a pinch of cayenne pepper and a warm cinnamon for just the right amount of spice. Hocho is sure to keep you warm as we settle into these colder winter months. 7%. Let's see. Let's see. I do like a good stout. Stouts apparently are becoming a commodity because everything at the beer store is an IPA or a sour. Let's see. Ooh. That's definitely a stout. All right, let me see. Doesn't smell like anything. Oh God, maybe I do have COVID. It doesn't smell like anything. No. All right, let's let that settle for a second, and then I will. Let's just keep going. Let's just keep going. I'll update you on it if it's any good.
Can you say God is on the side of those folks being lynched?
What?
When the God folk are the ones
Hang
who
on.
have this as
I'm sorry. We need to rewind a little bit.
and witnessed and celebrated a lynching. How, Cone, can you say God is on the side of those folks being lynched?
This has got some
When
alcohol
the God
content.
folk are the ones who have this as the kind of after church meal. Right? I mean, it was that raw for them. This was the time in which they were writing and thinking. Right? What do you think about this conversation? Y'all with me? Y'all all right? Yes.
I feel like it's like definitely needed.
Okay.
And that's still like just how important that question was then. It's just important.
Okay. What are the ways in which we see atrocities cloaked in God language?
This beer is really, really, really alcoholic. I don't even taste chocolate. I just taste alcohol. That's all I taste is alcohol. I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish it. We're going to give it a go. Maybe it just needs to settle. But this beer is like really alcoholic. And she's talking about God being responsible for folks like going to a picnic after. I don't even know what's going on.
What are the ways in which we see religious communities engaging in violence, ideological violence and physical violence, and saying it's because God told me to, because the Bible says so. Yeah.
Like for intermarriage, things people would say it's against God as well.
Yes. Right. I've heard.
Sarah Nicholas says, when I get my shawl, I'm going to call it my magnificent cape as my superhero cape. Sarah, you're going to love it. The shawl is on its way. I don't know how the heck long it's going to take to get to you in New Zealand, but it is on its way.
Arguments against.
And thank you for your patience, Sarah, in waiting for it.
Immigration. The radical hospitality toward those who are coming, seeking refuge, seeking home on theological grounds that Jesus would be opposed to. I mean, all kinds of constructions of theological arguments that then back up a particular political position. And let me just say here, to be honest about where I am, I'm not suggesting that the gospel is not political. So I'm just going to tell you my own.
Wow.
I'm not suggesting that.
The gospel is not political. If you are using, I'm sorry, I'm not even a Christian. The gospel is not political. It's not. It was a work of its time that used allegory to give you sage life lessons. Your interpretation of it is political, and thus the basis of my problem with the entire effing church. I'm sorry. This is the problem. This is why the church gets a bad name. This right here. The gospel is not a political effing document. It is a spiritual text that provides allegory to provide wisdom and life lessons. That is what it is. People like this are the problem. God damn it. This woman's going to make me defend Christianity. God damn it. Jenny's getting inky with it. Says, is she aware the devil quotes scripture too? Apparently not. I hate it when I'm put in a position of defending Christianity as like a non-Christian. Because I'm like, listen, I have some issues and I feel like those are some valid issues. But at the same time, it's kind of like there's a soft spot in my heart for Christians. Because I spent so many years of my life studying the historical Jesus. Fun fact, I really did. I have like a mountain of books in my basement because I was obsessed at one point with the historical Jesus. And like I have like all these different freaking it was a problem. It was a problem. Like in a former life, I went to graduate school to study the historical Jesus. That's a true story. And I sometimes find myself getting put in the positions of defending Christians for things that are not their fault because of people like this. Pisses me off. God damn it. Big fan of Jesus, not a big fan of Christians.
These questions were
not all Christians like this. Yeah, exactly. Alex, who I know is like a good one, at least criticize Christianity for what it actually is. It's all I ask. Man.
Require us to ask, okay, so what kind of politics can be justified by the gospel? Right? So let's do some examples here.
I don't know if I can drink this beer.
We have some theological claims we make.
This beer is too alcoholic. I'm opening this one. I'm drinking it out of the bottle. I will deal with the glass later. I'm sorry. This beer is like way too alcoholic for me. I had high hopes for it. Mexican style chocolate stout. Like who can even like doubt that? It's too alcoholic. I can't. I like beer that doesn't taste like alcohol. Let's try fucking frosted sugar cookie. That's what I'm talking about. This is an 8.6 alcohol content beer, Southern Tier frosted sugar cookie that tastes like effing sugar. It doesn't taste like alcohol. Not one smidge. This beer that tastes like sugar is more alcoholic than the beer that tastes like alcohol. I mean, if I get down this sugar cookie beer, I might get myself to a place where I can actually drink the rest of that beer. But it's going to take a little bit more beer to get me to a place where I can drink the actual... Oh, God. Hang on, we got a super chat. Jeremy says, the Bible is largely a historical and poetic document, and its entire political stance can be summed up as, obey whatever laws exist, nothing else. The sugar cookie beer's rad, though. Seriously. If you loathe beer, it's because you haven't found good beer yet. There's millions of amazing beers out there. You can find beer that tastes like anything. Stouts are usually good, man. Stouts are way better than IPAs. IPAs are like when people don't like beer, it's normally because they've had an IPA from someone who's like, IPAs are the best. I only drink IPAs, and then the beer tastes like bitter and gross, and it turns everyone off from beer for the rest of their lives. Not all beer is IPA. Beer is not white supremacy, Alex. Stop spreading rumors. Okay, let's keep going.
About the body.
IPAs are gross. I said it.
How might those claims be connected to the values of white supremacy? We have claims about the connection between material provision and spiritual provision. I grew up in a religious environment where if you did not experience wealth or you on your way to wealth, then that was a sign of low faith. That God blesses those who are faithful. Blesses them how? With wealth.
No. God blesses those who bless themselves. God blesses those who bless themselves. So what these slides say is in the green one, she's got theological / faith / religious values, use of the body, material versus spiritual, purity and piety versus whiteness values. And this big yellow box is whiteness values.
Notions of purity and piety, right? There's a certain way there's pureness to this and darkness and sinfulness associated with that. Sorry about that. We talk about biblical interpretations, right? As vulnerable to the system of white supremacy. The minute somebody could find the institution of slavery in the biblical text, there you go. Let me read this text to you as I escort you to the place where I will keep you enslaved for the rest of your life.
Again, she's making assumptions that because some people who call themselves Christians did bad things, that is reflective of God. God didn't teach you to do that. Dude, the Bible didn't teach you. Well, I guess, we could make the argument the Bible did have slavery in it. That's what caused this whole mess in the first place. Although God did free the slaves, though, there was a whole parting of the Red Sea that happened that we talk about every Easter when the 10 Commandments is on ABC again. 10 Commandments, one of the best movies ever, by the way. People might be surprised that I say this. The 10 Commandments, the original one with like Charlton Heston and Yul Brynner, that is one of the greatest effing movies of all time. You will never change my mind about this. I've seen it so many times. I love it. Maybe I'll even watch the 10 Commandments tonight. I know it's not Easter. We can still do it.
The religious imagination. This is really key. I like to do this stuff with kids too. Ask them to draw a picture of God. And I just give them time.
So I'm seeing in the chat the volume difference is huge. First of all, I'm betting it's not actually huge because I do watch the replays and I find out every time you guys tell me the volume difference is huge, it's like minuscule. Secondly, I'm turning down the volume on my mic. If you would like to turn the volume up on your computer, you are welcome to do it. I'm turning down the volume on my mic. You let me know if it's still big. It sounds the same to me, guys, so I'm doing the best I can.
You know, all of the Crayola 64 crayons. And we talk about, so how did God get to be that way in your imagination? You know? Philosophical commitments, manifest destiny as another historical marker. Right?
Oh, for fuck's sake.
God has given us this land. And who can argue with that? No, God didn't. Well, original sin. I was talking to somebody earlier about believing that humanity is fundamentally and innately fallen. What does that mean about redemption and whether redemption is possible? And how hard we work to give people another chance or not if they're fundamentally. This seems small, but language is never small. References to light and dark.
Are you fucking shitting me?
We always.
Are you shitting me? She is arguing that the Bible referencing light and dark is about white supremacy. She is, Jaya. She is. She is. Are you shitting me? I thought race was just a social construct. So if race is a social construct, then why should the Bible referencing light and dark mean anything? The Bible was written 2,000 years before effing before race existed, according to these people. These people will in the same breath argue that race didn't exist, that whiteness didn't exist until 1619 when the first slaves came to the United States. And they will in the same breath argue that light and dark in the Bible is a reference to white supremacy. Well, how could that possibly be if the Bible was written thousands of effing years before the time when you say that whiteness was created in the United States? Critical religious theory. I can't even. My God.
Associate darkness with evil. Subconsciously. I mean, you know, subconsciously.
I thought race was a social construct that didn't exist at the time of the Bible. If race is a social construct that didn't exist at the time of the Bible, then how could the Bible referencing light and dark be a reference to race? That makes no goddamn sense. They are just making things up. This is made up. This is created. I can't, man.
So that when I see you, and I got a split second to evaluate, I'm inclined to associate that darkness with ill intent. Where does that come from?
You.
And how about we talk about darkness as loaded with other kinds of possibility. That's why I love Advent. It's supposed to be this really dark, dank time before Christmas. You know, some plants only grow in the dark.
Some fish on it.
Huh. Come on. Just those small reframes. These ideas have consequences. That's all I'm saying. These theological ideas have consequences. I referenced this already. What do we do about those passages? Do we pretend they're not there?
Oh, she's talking about text
Do we
anyway.
admit that they've been used against folks as weapons?
Now is a good time to remind everyone that the Bible was written by man. The Bible was not written by God. The Bible was written by man and is therefore open to the interpretation of man. And I say this as someone who emphatically believes that an article that I wrote that went viral on the internet was inspired by a higher power and was not written by me, but it came through me and therefore was absolutely open to my human interpretation. George Andre Veloso Nunez says, the same way I can't comment the color of an old wooden statue without specifying I'm talking about the color. Exactly. The Bible was written by man. Therefore, it is open to the human interpretations of man based on the time in which they were raised and the perspective with which they were raised. It can be inspired by God all you like. That doesn't mean it comes through man's interpretation unscathed. That's not how it works.
Do we acknowledge that the institution of slavery is present in the biblical text? What do we do about that? What does it mean?
Yeah, so Crispy K says, remember, Crepsy, sorry. Remember CRT is seeing everything through race. This is a very good point. This is actually a really critical point. I'm really glad you brought this up. So guys, just so if you're new to Happy Hour, we do this every week. We watch a woke training, we talk about it. But the definition that I use of critical race theory is that critical race theory is an ideology that was founded in academia in the 1970s that says racism exists everywhere in every person and everything and every interaction. And the job of the critical race theorist is to suss out how, not if, how racism occurred in every single circumstance. And that's because in critical race theory, racism is assumed to have occurred. So to the point that the super chat is making, CRT, critical race theory, is seeing everything through the lens that says racism occurred. Racism occurred. This is racist. Racism is here. We need to figure out how racism occurred in this circumstance. So she's literally looking at the Bible and saying, how did racism occur? Well, if you find slavery in the text of the Bible, that's like an easy win. That's like lazy, man. That's lazy. That's the laziest possible interpretation.
If Jesus's world included enslavement, what does that mean about the radicality of Jesus saying, I have come to set the captives free? Good old Job. Y'all know Job? Job living his life, minding his business. And then all hell breaks loose, right? One thing at a time. Which in some ways, I mean, that's like torture. He loses his children and he loses his livelihood, his crops and his animals. Right? He loses his health. His body is covered in sores. And then his wife is like, look, dude, I don't know. I mean, what's going on here? And his friends at first are sitting with him and like, we got you, Job. And then at some point they're like, so man, what did you do to deserve this? Job, facing a life of misfortune. I'm teaching a class this semester on suffering and how we might make theological meaning of suffering or not. And the primary question we're asking is, how is some suffering responded to differently by religious folks than other suffering? And how might those responses be informed by ideas around race and class and gender? Really sad story the other day. A woman reported to the ER, a Black woman, young.
Have to talk about her race, of course. Georgia Veloso Nunez says, funny how she doesn't mention who were slaves in the Bible and who were the slave owners. Who were the slaves in the Bible, chat? Who were the slaves in the Bible? Who were the slaves that Moses freed? Were they black? They were the Hebrews. They were the Jews. I wonder how she feels about Israel. I wonder how she feels about Israel. That's an interesting question.
Maybe 20 years old, was having chest pains. She was really sick. She sat in the ER for like 6 hours, and they kept telling her, we'll come back to you, we'll get back to you, we'll come back to you. She decides she can't wait anymore, and she...
Oh, shit! Breaking news. Hang on, I just looked at Twitter. Side note. Apparently, BLM rioters descended on Rodeo Drive, terrorizing people and robbing stores. Isn't that great? Isn't that special? If you're in California, you need to get the F out of California. Please, follow Dave Rubin's lead. Get the F out of California. Thou shalt not steal. See, I know that commandment at least.
She leaves and tries to go to like urgent care. She gets to urgent care and she dies. People are like, what? She was feet away from the things that could have saved her. What accounts for that kind of delay? Not just in an individual's experience, but in a community's experience, in a collective experience. And how do we assign God a role in all of that? That's really where I'm going. Galatians 5, in Christ there is no Jew nor Greek, nor male nor female, nor bond nor free, right? It's really great. I mean, really great, right? Well, there's some scholars and theologians, particularly scholars and theologians of color, who want to say, don't erase the fact that I'm Black, that I'm a woman, that I'm short. I don't know. Don't erase the particularities of my identity.
Literally, no one's erasing your identity.
Made me this way. But the kink in my hair. Right? Yes.
I think we've used Galatians 5. I mean, colorblind is a great word to say that, there is none of this. Right. And instead, we've misinterpreted this. We all have access to this. We've taken out that. We all have access to the kingdom. Not that there isn't those general differences in the kingdom, but that we all have access. And so I think we've built up a theology and we've built up a relationship using Galatians 5 to wipe away what is culturally significant to each other.
That is literally fucking amazing. Do you guys understand what just happened? I don't know if you could hear the audience well, because I know it's a little soft in my ear, so it might be soft for yours. Like, that is literally fucking amazing. M169, I don't think she's saying what you think she is. That is literally fucking amazing. The person in the audience just enumerated the difference between equality of opportunity and equality of outcome. That's what just happened here. And I'm not even sure this woman, the Reverend, realized what just happened. I'm not even sure the audience member realized what they just did. I think the audience member is saying colorblindness has been misinterpreted and is trying to make the argument that the Bible is racist because the idea of colorblindness has been misinterpreted. But instead what she did was she enumerated the difference between equality of opportunity, in which everyone gets access to the same opportunities regardless of their skin color, and equality of outcome, which is what this woman is arguing for, because she's coming from the camp of Kendi and saying that racial disparities exist when racism exists. That was amazing. Okay, I want to rewind this just so we can listen and enjoy this again, because that was really good.
That I'm short. I don't know. Don't erase the particularities of my
Let's see
identity.
if any of them understand what just
God
happened.
made
We
me
understand
this
it.
way.
That doesn't mean they do.
With the kink in my hair. Right? Yes.
I think we've used Galatians 5. I mean, colorblind is a great word to say that, there is none of this.
Right.
And instead, we've misinterpreted this. We all have access to this. We've taken out that. We all have access to the kingdom. Not that there isn't those general differences in the kingdom, but that we all have access. So I think we've built up a theology and we've built up a relationship using Galatians 5 to wipe away what is culturally significant to each other, instead of talking about what really Christ provided with us, which is access.
Yeah.
The student is correct.
Christ is not showing any favorites, playing any favorites here. That all can come and find rest and redemption and hope and love and justice. Oh, there's more. Recognize this?
She just glossed over it. She just glossed over it. She was talking about suffering earlier in the Bible and like why the Bible like had people suffering. She just completely glossed over the point that this student made, which is that everyone has access to the same opportunities. That is exactly correct. What these people want is for you to be handed everything. Like, if God is good, then God is going to make sure you're happy. God, in this case, is the government, and will hand you everything that you could ever want, and you don't need anything that the government doesn't hand you. And if you think you need something that God doesn't hand you, then you are wrong. She just glossed right over it. That was amazing. Decolonizing God.
Classic, right? We know this. Beloved, right? The Black Latina woman, Harmonia Rosales, who created this, got death threats, y'all.
Oh, please.
Yes.
I get death threats all the fucking time. Please. Please. I think that's a beautiful image. I do. I don't think there's any difference between that image and the other image, to be really honest with you. AD says, we had to do this kind of training at work and they kept mentioning whiteness, and so I asked what blackness is. Needless to say, that didn't go well. Yeah, don't ask that question. Don't ask that question ever in the work environment, because you don't want to lose your job, man. I understand fighting back, and I'm a fan, but pick your battles. Don't ask what the definition of blackness is if your workplace is making you take an anti-racism training. Just nod and smile, but very brave. I mean, like, honestly, like, I hope you didn't have any negative repercussions from it. I really do.
Threats. Not because this was in a museum, not because this was on Instagram. I don't know how you Instagram it, but I don't expect to get death threats as a result of my Instagram posts.
That's a normal everyday experience for
What's different here?
conservatives.
Okay, we got women. Yes. You gotta say women. Black women, dark-skinned.
There you go.
Which is critical.
Did you guys hear the person in the audience? She said dark skin, and then someone in the audience says that's critical. Do you know why they think that? Because in the hierarchy of oppression, dark-skinned Black people are more oppressed than light-skinned Black people. That's basically how the hierarchy of oppression goes. The darker your skin is, the closer you are to the top of the oppression hierarchy. The lighter your skin is, the closer you are to the bottom of the oppression hierarchy. And yes, they do differentiate between darker skinned black people and lighter skinned black people. So if you have lighter skin as a black person, congratulations, you're like not quite as oppressed as people with darker skin. And of course, apparently the Bible is apparently to blame for that because it talks about the dark and the light, which of course is bullshit and nonsense. But it doesn't even make sense since they said that racism started in 1619, but okay.
Huh? One or two? One?
Who gets the most victim points? America's Aries Sun asks. Who gets the most victim points? Who's at the top among all the groups? If we're talking about the intersectionality top, which is like intersectionality is when you have multiple competing oppression like identities. So at the very top of the oppression hierarchy are going to be like black, trans, women, essentially. But if we're just talking about race, dark-skinned black people are going to be at the very top, and then it's going to be like lighter-skinned black people. And then most of the time, the oppression hierarchy shifts. Okay? So the oppression hierarchy can be different things on different days. Most of the time, it's going to be like dark-skinned black people, lighter-skinned black people, Native Americans, indigenous people, Latinos, Asians, Jews, white. That's generally going to be the progression. I know that's not inclusive of everyone but generally speaking, the darker your skin is, the closer to the top. Generally speaking, the lighter your skin is. Asians are the big exception to this because Asians can go up and down. Asians are only oppressed when it's politically convenient for them to be oppressed. They are not oppressed when it is not politically convenient for them to be oppressed. I hope that answers your question. I have a chart in my book that's coming out. If you would like to pre-order the book, it is currently available on Amazon. Guys, oh, by the way, guess what I found out? I'm getting an audiobook. Yay! Yay, there will be an audio version of the book. Yes. Do I have to read it? No. Even better. Someone else will be reading it. It will not be me, which is ideal for me because I can't think of anything more awkward than reading your own effing book. But there will be an audio version of my book. It's very exciting. I'm pretty happy about it.
Or two. Nobody's ever been to the eye doctor. That's fine. Okay. So you.
Even the little kids are like all girls too.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The title is also different.
The creation of Adam, the creation of God. This was deeply offensive to some folk. There's some commitments to God as male, to God as white, to God as fill in the blank.
Oh my God, Jaya says get James Lindsay or Michael Malice to read it. Oh my God, I should totally suggest that. I don't know if they would. That would be effing hilarious though. I think they want to hire like a professional actor, which again is fine with me. I am totally fine. Like I don't really, as long as I don't have to read it, I can't think of anything more awkward than reading my own book. I don't even want to edit my own book anymore, but that would be effing hilarious. If Lindsay read my book, oh my God, I should totally suggest that. I don't think he would. I think he's way too busy. But that would be hilarious.
This is a hand. Okay.
Right.
Classic. I mean, this was in my grandmother's kitchen.
Every home.
Absolutely.
Every home.
Warner Salmons, head of Christ. When he drew this, he did not know that it would become this. What do we know about Jesus here? Jesus white.
No, you've just picked an image of him that's white.
Jesus handsome, kind of a beefcake Jesus. I don't know.
I don't know about that.
Okay. The representation of Jesus here, for many, connects to the representation of the one who is currently oppressing me. Mm-hmm. This looks like power. This looks like access. This looks like.
Wow.
Can you see? Mm-hmm. Oh, you can see. Okay. Now, I put the title and stuff there, but if I didn't put that, what do you notice here? There's a okay, and it stands out because it's the vibrant color. I mean, everything else is kind of dreary and kind of grayed out, sort of. We got this and the star. There's so many biblical references embedded. I hope you Google this and look at it closely. We got Jose with a name tag here, like a mechanic's kind of shirt. And we've got this young girl here who has a hoodie on that says Nazareth High School. She is pregnant. What else? Dave's City Motel, the city of David. You will find, right. The Wise Man cigarettes.
Like, I actually think the interpretations like this are really interesting, and I like looking at different artistic interpretations of different themes. And so I have no issue with this, but my question is, like, why can't both be true? Why can't both be true? We have absolutely like both of these things can be true. God can show up in different ways to different communities. Like, why people think that God is like this all-powerful thing, and then they also think that God has to limit itself to showing up as a white man, that just makes no godly sense. Makes no sense at all.
Sort of looks like a halo around the girl's head, sort of.
It's art.
The star on the sign, yeah.
It is an interpretation.
No vacancy at this hotel. No room in the inn. This is supposed to say manger with the... This says good news, like Good News candy bar. There's an ad here in this newspaper on the ground that says glad tidings. So lots of stuff buried in here that Patterson buried. So he drew this. He's a cartoonist, illustrator. Drew this, sent it out as his Christmas card in 2014. Guess who got death threats? Why? How does this offend?
Yeah, he shouldn't have gotten death threats for that. Congratulations. He shouldn't have gotten death threats.
If this is Joseph and Mary, what then?
I mean, really, the point that she's making is that people who call themselves Christians should act more Christ-like, which I absolutely agree with. I absolutely agree with. I know what she's talking about. Listen, man, I talk about this actually in my book. I talk about it before this latest cancellation even happened because I wrote the book in July, effectively. Like, the worst cancellations, the most death threats I've ever gotten are from the right. They're not from the left. And yes, I can tell the difference. I can absolutely tell the difference between emails that I get that are from the left and emails that I get that are from the right because of the language. I get more death threats from the right than I do the left from the fundamentalists. On this, her and I agree. But the problem to that is that Christians should start acting more Christian. That's the answer to the problem, man. That's the answer. If you call yourself a Christian, start acting like a Christian. Because if you don't, then you get crazy people like this saying God is a white supremacist. And the bad Christian should not be reflective of all Christians. They just shouldn't. All right, let's keep going.
We got 2 kids trying to find shelter in the rain. Reference to kind of a working class background. Named Jose and Maria. That offends some sensibilities people might have about the origins of Jesus. Iconography is important in some religious communities, some Christian communities. This was created by Mark Dukes shortly after the death of, Michael Brown. What do you see? Okay, this reminds us of
The resurrection.
maybe Holy Mother,
No, maybe Holy Mother.
who is with child.
Oh, I see it. Okay,
But
I
what
got
do we
it.
know about this child based on this image? This child is going to be targeted.
What? Oh, I didn't even see. Okay, so I'm not looking at the bigger picture.
How does that frame Jesus in a way that offends certain people?
Okay, let me look at this picture. I'm looking at the bigger one now on my other screen. Okay, so we've got Mary and a black child in her womb, and there's a big target. I don't know if that's coming through on the video. You can kind of see it on the video. So it's like this child is going to be targeted before they're ever born. That's not decolonizing Jesus. I am sorry. No, rejected. This is not decolonizing Jesus. This is taking a painting or whatever the fuck this is and categorizing it as Jesus, but that's not what this is. If you're talking about this being created after Michael Brown's death, that's not a reference to Jesus. Sorry, that's not decolonizing Jesus. That has to do with a contemporary artist commenting on a contemporary timely issue. Fundamentally reject that.
That Jesus from the beginning, based upon the way he was
Just
living,
because you call it Our Lady Mother of Ferguson doesn't actually mean it represents what you're saying it represents. I'm sorry, dude. Like, these are just weak arguments. If she's making the case that Jesus is or that God is a white supremacist, like, these are just lazy arguments. All right, guys, I gotta bounce for like 1 minute. I'm gonna let the video play. I'm gonna be right back. Okay? I'll be right back. Hang on. Let the video play.
and what he was saying was ultimately targeted and killed. The hands up, remember the hands up, don't shoot mantra. So an act of protest, an act of surrender, an act of fear, all of that. The priest who posted this on Facebook, so Mark Dukes didn't, but the priest did, got cussed out, told off.
I'm back.
Sacrilegious blasphemy. What do we see here? This is a reference to what biblical story?
I actually love this. I love this. This is great.
Mm-hmm. So Jesus encounters.
I love looking at different art. This is great. I'm actually appreciating this section of the presentation.
Shady dealings going on in the temple.
I don't think this in any way, shape, or form makes her point. And let's just be really clear about that. I don't feel this was making her point. I just think I like looking at art that interprets things in different ways. Oh, sorry.
Just kind of money.
Got a super chat while I was away. George Andre Veloso Nunez says, sorry, lady. Brazilians claimed that Mary in the 1800s, you didn't invent it. That's exactly correct.
Changers objectively, but money changers who were exploiting financially the folks who were coming to them to do the exchange. So this was like, no. And Jesus drives them out.
I love this.
My house is a house of prayer. You've made it a den of thieves. Mm-hmm. What's changed, though, in this scenario? Who's been driven out? Can you all see the names? Wells Fargo, Goldman
The
Sachs,
tax
JP Morgan,
collectors.
Chase, Citi. So a reference to
This right here, you know what this is? This is the populace rising up against the elites. This is GameStop. This art right here could absolutely represent the GameStop thing. Or like the Wall Street Bets thing. That's what this is. This is the proletariat rising up against the bourgeoisie. That's what this is.
the institution, the financial sector's exploitation of folks who cannot possibly pay back that payday loan or cannot possibly get over their heads above water on their mortgage or whatever it is. Cone, his next to last book before he died, was called The Cross and the Lynching Tree. He wanted to draw a connection between the lynching tree as an instrument, an apparatus for public execution.
Yeah, Patrice says in the chat, payday loans really are horrid. Can I make a confession? I used to, for a brief time, do consulting with like a payday loan company. And I always felt guilty about that. I did. They were very nice people. They really were. But I was like, oh, I always felt dirty about it. I was like, ugh. But I believe that everyone in the work environment deserves a happy work environment. So I did it. Because it's more for like just like the average people than the people doing it. But it's just like I felt dirty. I did. I felt really dirty. I felt bad. I still took their money though. Jeremy says, I wasn't able to stick around due to children in listening environment, but I wish you and everyone a joyous Christmas. Merry Christmas, Jeremy. Merry Christmas to everyone. Thank you for dropping by. I really appreciate it. Guys, just so you know, the best Christmas present you could give me would be by joining my locals community, kb.locals.com. And if you are inclined to become a member, if you have some Christmas cash that you've been squirreling away, you can become a member in my locals, or if you want to make a gift to someone, you can actually gift them a membership in my locals. So those things would be pretty great.
Public humiliation, shame, and the cross that Jesus carried and died on. The cross as an instrument, an apparatus of public execution, of public shaming and humiliation. Dying a humiliating, painful death. One who had not committed a crime. And in Cone's work, he's saying, how come all of those white theologians didn't make the connection between the cross that they preached and the lynchings that were going on right in their communities? Y'all all right?
Yeah, I forgot my chat.
She's so offended by that
Couple
white
more.
man. She's like, She's that fit.
What's here? This is a reference to
The Last
Last
Supper.
Supper. This is called the First Supper. Why? Why do you think? First Peoples. This woman here represents, I should say, Susan White is an Australian Indigenous artist. And so who sits where Jesus sat in the famous depiction of the Last Supper? An Indigenous woman. An Indigenous woman. And everybody else at the table is a woman. Notice anything? Anything stick out to you?
Some would argue that Mary Magdalene was in the Last Supper. I'm just saying. Jeremy says, it's probably been mentioned, but remind me who was the oldest and for a long time the largest Christian church was. I'm not sure I know the answer to that. Someone else answer that. I don't know the answer. It's probably a mention, but remind me who the oldest and for a long time the largest Christian church was. I don't know the answer to that. True story. I don't know the answer to that. Inform me. Yeah, I mean, again, I don't mind this art, but it's just like, you know, they're making a political statement when, fine. I guess you can make the argument that a political statement is always necessary, but again, it's not. She is not. Are we talking about the Catholic Church? Okay, so she's not making the argument that Jesus was a white supremacist. I'm sorry. Well, I thought it was the Catholics. But I'm not sure what point Jeremy's making to be. Jeremy, I'm not sure what point you're making. I thought it was the Catholics. I thought that was right, but oh, this is the point Jeremy's making. Ethiopian Coptic Church, founded during the Book of Acts and reminding every other branch of the XXD. I'll hear them. I will. Thank you, Jeremy, for that contribution. I appreciate that. Yeah, I would have said the Catholics. But no, Jeremy says it's the Ethiopian Coptic Church. But some other people got Coptic too. Let's see. Carl got it. Yeah, Carl got it. Carl wins the prize. There's no bingo today because there's apparently this is not a bingo presentation. But Carl, you did win the prize for saying the Coptic Church has been around the longest. Congratulations on getting that trivia question correctly. Jai got it too.
Okay. Yep. Mm-hmm.
There's a great scene in the Ten Commandments when the Ethiopians come to Egypt and they have all this treasure and they're doing all these dances. That's a great fucking scene.
I'm honing in here. So she's got on denim overalls. She's
hang on, sorry.
She's drinking.
Sorry, guys, we gotta pause the presentation for super chats. Jeremy says my typing was terrible. No, the Ethiopians beat the Catholics by 3 centuries. They're good people, though I'm not a part of it. Yes, I'm sure they are good people. Congratulations to the Ethiopians for getting there first. Take that, white supremacy.
Coca-Cola. And she's sitting where in the beloved, famous depiction, Judas sat. Mm-hmm. So what is this? I mean, she's given us some commentary about the betrayer. Not necessarily this woman here, but what she represents.
Wait, is she saying that the white woman is Judas?
Commercialization.
Is that what she's saying? Who is Judas? Hang on.
I'm honing in here. So she's got on denim overalls. She's pale skinned. She's drinking Coca-Cola. And she's sitting where
she's saying that white women are Judas. Holy shit. She's literally saying that white people are the betrayers. I can't. That's not evidence that God is a white supremacist, that someone made a painting that said that white women are evil. We all know liberal white women are the greatest enemy. We all know that. Robin DiAngelo wrote a whole book about that.
The beloved, infamous
Judas is a white woman. Yes. Judas is a white woman.
Mm-hmm. So what is this? I mean, she's given us some commentary about
well, you're giving us some commentary too. Jeremy says, on my way to Christmas Eve service, so I'm out for the night, but thanks for referencing my boy Charlton Heston. Dude was a champ. Dude was a champ, man. Yul Brynner, champ as well. Old movies are the best. They're the best. I'm going to watch the 10 Commandments tonight. Have a good service, Jeremy. Merry Christmas.
betrayer. Not necessarily this woman here, but what she represents. Right? Commercialization, you know, colonization.
Maybe a commentary on the feminist movement versus women of color.
So that even
Did you hear that? Oh my god! I don't know if that came through in the video, but there was a woman in the audience that said maybe this is a commentary on the feminist movement and women of color, because what they're saying is the feminist movement was just a bunch of white liberal women that were like still oppressing women of color. Which, I mean, honestly, I think there's actually a pretty good case to be made for that. Guys, what's your favorite Christmas movie? Favorite Christmas movie in the chat? Give us some ideas for what to watch tonight while we're sitting around waiting for Christmas to happen. I don't have an opinion on whether Die Hard is a Christmas movie because I've never actually watched it. True story. Never seen Die Hard. I've seen bits and pieces of it. I've never watched the whole thing start to finish. So, favorite Christmas movie in the chat. Let's give people some inspiration.
Celebrating 100 years of the suffragist movement this year, 2020. There was a critique coming from women who had been left out of the movement, who said these goals are not connected to my goals. These goals lack a certain kind of analysis that you only get from people like me, if you include me. Okay. Last picture.
Huh. All right.
The author is anonymous, but people have given it the title Crucifixation.
This is legit. Let's just take a minute on this one. You got this cop. You got Jesus obviously being crucified. Maybe I'll watch Passion of the Christ tonight. Passion of the Christ was an epic fucking movie. How many people saw the Passion of the Christ in the movie theater? I did. That movie was epic. But look at this. This is cool, man. Look, you got Jesus on the cross. You got the cops whipping him, and you got the paparazzi. This is badass. I want this. I want a print of this. I'm not making this up. I think this is awesome. This is awesome. Crucifixion or the Stations of the Cross. I'm looking this up. I'm getting this print.
Why? Okay, so we got people taking pictures. Might be a commentary about, I went to the movies the other day and there was a domestic situation happening right there in the parking lot. People standing around filming. Mm-hmm. On the one hand, sometimes video helps. On the other hand, eek. Please, if you all see something going down with me out here, please come help me. You know my name. Come, please. So we have the picture taking.
It does look like something Banksy would do. You're right. It looks like something Banksy would do.
Here? Okay, so both and. So this person might be contributing to the harm, violence. This person might be protecting or holding back the crowd, or I don't know. But this is an obvious reference to Jesus carrying the cross.
Obviously.
I'm watching the time. I've got the next few slides are biblical passages that I invite us to read.
Oh, good.
in a way that rejects interpretations that are connected to white supremacy. So let's do just one, maybe.
Oh
Again,
God, so
this
many
is the story
words.
of Abraham and Isaac. God says to Abraham, take your son, Isaac, go to Mount Moriah. Good to see you. And offer Isaac as a burnt offering. Abraham and Isaac journey up Mount Moriah. Isaac at some point on the journey says,
Yes, Carl. Carl says in the chat, I came in late. Please tell me this is not university/graduate education. You know where this is from? I'll scroll down. This is a lecture that actually occurred at Villanova University. It is on Villanova University's official YouTube channel. So yes, this is a university level class and/or lecture. Yes. For those of you who don't know, we do happy hour on Fridays on my channel. If you want to, so it's going to be on Actively Unwoke in the next year, in the upcoming year. So if you're watching on my primary YouTube channel, Carolyn Borisenko today, you want to make sure you subscribe to Actively Unwoke because we're going to do them on Fridays on Actively Unwoke moving forward. I may have a happy hour next week. I'm not sure yet because New Year's Eve, but we'll see. But yes, this is a university level class. This is what we watch on happy hour.
where's the lamb? I don't know. Daddy? Abraham says, God will provide. It'll be fine. They walk on together. They come to the place. Abraham picks up Isaac, lays him on the altar, took the knife, stopped by voice, Abraham, Abraham, don't hurt the boy. Abraham looks up. Over there.
How is this white supremacy? How is this white supremacy?
Sacrifices it instead. Names the place. The Lord will provide.
Abraham and Isaac weren't white.
So I want to know,
how is this white supremacy?
Interpretations of this text be used? How is this text vulnerable to being exploited?
Abraham and Isaac wouldn't have been white. How could this possibly be white supremacy when Abraham and Isaac wouldn't have been white? Jesus fucking Christ. Brian, Merry Christmas from New Zealand. I hope you and all of your subscribers have a good day. Thank you, Brian. Merry Christmas. I know you're in the future. It's already Christmas in New Zealand. Merry Christmas to you. Thank you for dropping by.
By the goals of white supremacy. So I'm asking you to, for a second, suspend the thing that you've been taught about this. I mean, I was taught, Abraham, the father of our faith, because he didn't withhold his precious, precious child from God. So I'm asking you to suspend and answer this question. How might this text be vulnerable to being used as a tool of white supremacy? Yes.
Maybe someone view it as like don't sacrifice one for one that is like you, instead use one sacrifice one that's like you view as inferior or as different to you.
That some sacrifices are justifiable.
Right.
Some sacrifices are justifiable,
Some
she says, is how this is white supremacy.
God ordained.
See, this is where I think my belief system has like a leg up on Christianity, because I actually do legitimately believe that if you die, you chose to effing die in whatever manner of your death before you were born. So in that way, it is God ordained. You made the choice before you were born, when you were still in spirit form, when you knew you were part of God. This is where my belief system makes a whole lot more sense than Christianity. I'll tell you what. Because I actually do believe that people made these choices. I do believe there's rhyme and reason to it. I don't believe they ever really die. They just go back to the spirit realm. This woman is saying that the story of Abraham and Isaac, who would not have been white, in historical terms, would not have been white. She's saying that is evidence of white supremacy because God is saying that some people are worthy of sacrifice, that sacrifice happens. I mean, I'm sorry, we have an entire human history to tell us that bad things happen to good people. We have an entire human history to tell us that suffering exists in a way that people like this don't want to explain. Makes a whole lot more sense to just believe that there's rhyme and reason to all of this. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
One of the things I like, go ahead.
I was going to say, my consciousness goes to the thread of conversation around mass incarceration and the drug epidemic, which had one path about protection for specific groups, which now is calling for empathy and understanding for the opioid epidemic. Because there's a different group that's being protected.
Wait.
Some suffering is worth our sympathy and concern and compassion and intervention. Some suffering, well, that is a test of your faith.
Yes. Yes. Some suffering is a test of your faith. Absolutely. 100%. Every day of the effing week. And if she thinks there's been an intervention in the opioid epidemic, she hasn't been to New Hampshire. I'm sorry. We're like 97% of the population is white. And there has not been any significant intervention by will of God or anything else in the opioid epidemic. I'm sorry, there hasn't. There was like a lot of talk about it, but there wasn't any effing intervention. So far as I understand. This is where I start to get persnickety because I'm almost done this sugar cookie beer, which is like 9% effectively. But we're almost done, so that's okay. This sugar cookie beer is rad. If you have an opportunity to get Southern Tier frosted sugar cookie beer, holy shit. This is going down like candy. Candy. Really good. Merry effing Christmas. Play.
That is your lot in life. One of the things I like to say when I talk about this text is that we don't see, after this moment, any interaction in the biblical text between Abraham and Isaac.
Well, he did try to sacrifice him.
Now, that might be just didn't come up or whatever. But
as Jaya said earlier, like that must have been an awkward walk home. Abraham did try to sacrifice Isaac. I don't know. If my father tried to sacrifice me to God, I'd probably be pretty pissed. She's like, we didn't see any interaction with Abraham and Isaac for the whole rest of the Bible. You think? He tried to sacrifice him. Jenny's getting icky with it, says, and here I thought the point of the story was that Abraham loved God enough to do it, but God didn't require a human sacrifice. That would have been the most awkward walk home ever. Like, sorry, son. I didn't. Psych! Didn't mean it.
I would you be the same? Coming down the mountain after you've just had this encounter? What do you say? What are you talking about? The next time we see them in the same sentence in the biblical text is because Abraham has died and Isaac has come home to bury his father.
That's not white supremacy. None of them were white.
Yeah. My favorite stories in the Bible. Mark 5. Jesus comes to the country of the Gerasenes. And a man who was living in the tombs. Stop. You're looking for a place to live after college. You will not go to the nearest cemetery. So I want to know, how did this man get to live in the tombs? Who put him there? Who drove him there? He is living among the dead. He has an unclean spirit. Many folks, particularly those in the disability justice movement.
Oh God, the disability justice movement. Stephen says, Abraham sent a servant to find a wife for Isaac. Stephen, I'm not sure that would make up for trying to sacrifice him to God. I'm not sure that sending him a servant to find him a wife would make up for the fact that he attempted to sacrifice him on an altar to God. I would be profoundly perturbed if my father tried to sacrifice me on an altar to God. I'm just saying.
Make a claim here about the extent to which this man was misunderstood or vilified because of his mental illness. He has an unclean spirit. He's living in the tombs. No one could restrain him, even with a chain. He'd often been restrained, but the chains he wrenched apart. Night and day, he lived among the tombs, and he was always howling and bruising himself with stones. He's hurting himself. He saw Jesus coming, ran to Jesus and said, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God?" Stop. So the folk, you mean to tell me that the folk who are living in among the dead, living in those places where we don't want to go, who have something going on that folk don't understand, who hurt themselves, who might be a danger to others, recognize Jesus? Call Jesus by name? What? I adjure you by God, don't torment me. Jesus had said, "Come out of the man, you unclean spirit." Jesus asks the man, "What's your name?" The man replies, "My name is Legion, for we are many." Stop. That's an odd way to answer that question. That's like saying, "My name is 13.
Right.
What does that mean? What would that have meant to the people who heard it? Legion was a unit of Roman soldiers. I am the military. I'm just going to hang that right there. He begged.
Wow.
The man begged Jesus not to send the spirits out of the country. So Jesus sends the unclean spirits into a herd of swine that they over there minding their business, and then they get overtaken by the unclean spirits. The pigs.
She's a reverend.
2,000 of them. Imagine this scene.
She's a reverend.
Jump into the sea and drown. The people who saw that say they're afraid. This man now is clothed and in his right mind. So they told Jesus, "Leave." As Jesus was leaving, the man who had been possessed said, "Can I come with you?" And Jesus said, No. Go tell everybody what happened. Lots of commentary we could make here about people living in incarceration.
Oh my fucking God.
From community. People living.
She's making a social justice commentary about the police
criminalize
system
or demonize.
And the prison state.
And the response of a community when that person gets it together.
Wow.
The text says he was clothed and in his right mind, and the people were angry and afraid.
That was the jump I wasn't
And told
expecting.
Jesus, "You better get out of here."
I probably should have. I've had 2.5 beers.
The pigs, this is the last thing I'll say, were the source of income and the livelihoods of the folks living in that region. So how dare Jesus come in here and heal this man and have it cost us something. I'm not preaching.
Right. Yes.
She's a reverend.
And positive
Reverend.
Well, all I want to say, y'all, is be vigilant about rescuing the God of your understanding from the clutches of systems of oppression. Watch out for the use
It's wrapping
of
up. We're going to talk about it in a
religious
sec.
symbols and your stories to hurt and oppress other folk. That's all I wanted to say. All right.
Thank you.
See you later.
What the fuck was that? If I look disheveled, oh God. If I look disheveled, it's because I'm legitimately disheveled. What the hell was that? She made that whole thing up. Listen, man. If I'm gonna watch a lecture that says Jesus is a white supremacist, I'm gonna want a whole hell of a lot more evidence than some Christians misinterpreted the Bible and did some really bad things with their misinterpretation of the Bible, and then, oh, like, Jesus is white and therefore is a white supremacist when Jesus isn't actually considered white all the way throughout the world. And then, oh, because Abraham tried to sacrifice Isaac, that is evidence of white supremacy in a way that I still don't even understand. Holy shit. That was taught at a major Catholic university. Dude, what the fuck did we just watch? But I do think that that was the most perfect thing that we could have watched on this Christmas Eve. Listen, man, like Carl says, for a non-Christian, Carlin, you're really nailing this analysis. Listen, I'm not joking when I say I've read the Bible like multiple times. I used to be way into this stuff, man. I'm fascinated by religion. I really am. I'm fascinated by the historical Jesus. I really am. That's all real. Just because I'm not a Christian don't mean I don't have some game. Come on. But I want to thank you all for hanging out with me on Christmas Eve. I know that, maybe you guys have nothing else to do. It's Christmas Eve. Sometimes we have family stuff, sometimes we don't. But I do want to remind you that, guys, we do happy hour almost every single week on Friday. I'm not 100% that we're going to do it next week because I have to go to brunch with Joshua. But we will be doing Actively Unwoke on my second YouTube channel moving forward. Okay? So in 2022, if I do Actively Unwoke next week, it'll be on my main YouTube channel. But after that, we're going to be on my second YouTube channel, which is Actively Unwoke, youtube.com/Actively Unwoke. So please make sure you subscribe to Actively Unwoke because this is going to be an exclusive over there moving forward. In 2022, we're going to be moving all streams to 5 p.m. Every single stream on my main YouTube channel and every single stream on Actively Unwoke is going to be at 5 p.m. Okay, so we're changing the time. We're also changing the channel because I'm starting to separate out content. I want to do things a little bit differently. I want to be able to do other content on my main channel, which is Carlin Borisenko. Of course, if you're watching on Odyssey or Rockfin, that's not going to change anything that's going on. Okay. So if you're on alt tech, this isn't going to change anything. But guys, please make sure you subscribe to my second channel. And please, I hope you will join me in my locals community. You can join for free at kb.locals.com. Bing! There it is right there. Or you can become a supporter, which is even better. You can become a supporter at $5 a month or more. You can become a supporter at $50 a year, which gives you 2 months for free. You can also make a one-time gift. You can also gift subscriptions in my locals if you're looking for that last-minute holiday gift and you know someone who would be inclined to join my locals. You can make a gift currently of that subscription, which is pretty rad. But guys, I do hope you all have a wonderful Christmas. I almost said Thanksgiving. I'm not going to lie. It's December. Can't even believe it. Merry Christmas to everyone celebrating Christmas. I have to wrap my husband's present now. Don't tell him I haven't wrapped it yet. I have to wrap it now. But guys, I'm going to be off tomorrow as I always am on Saturdays. But please enjoy the time off. Enjoy the time with your families. I hope you all have good food and good drink. And it is merry and awesome. We will be doing Effed Up News on Sunday at 5 p.m. So join me back on the channel for Effed Up News on Sunday. Merry Christmas, everyone. Have a great rest of your day and an awesome, awesome weekend.